to tell you, I find it hard to take when people run in circles. It's a very, very mad world. Mad world.
Okay. This is session 2 on Saturday, February 1st, which is the first Saturday in February 2025. So we are doing our first of 2 sessions on the first and third Saturdays of this month, as we are doing with each of the months between last September and the coming September of 2025. And this is Islands of Sanity in a Mad World. And today our focus is a recap of one of the core pieces that just helps me keep have some kind of a functional language and also have a layout, continuum to assess myself on and just to see where am I in the grand view of this human-caused collapse stuff that's going on in the world. So it's the Paul Chafurka's Stages of Awareness took up a bit of our attention in the first hour. And I thank you all very much for jumping into just a first round of exploration of what I would call the feeling body. Introduce you to just a little bit of obscure language. It's not meant to be mystical or something. It seems like there are core components of what it is to be a human being that really deserve their own aspects, their own way to discern them, just to distinguish them. And primarily, how I do that is through giving them their own body, as if that body, that physical body, here's this one. There are other parts of us as being people that could be considered to be bodies as well, and they are somehow fit into this body, this physical one. And the feeling body is the first and easiest one to talk about. So imagine that there those feelings that are such a vivid part of our being alive, that they live in their own body, and imagine that they, like our physical body, have a center. That feeling body has a center, has a place that gives us a felt sense of being home or centered in our experience when we are. And we know some of those, how to describe some of those feelings, some of those sensations when we're not centered in our feeling body, or when we are centered in our feeling body. Let me just pause there. Is that a bunch of new agey gobbledygook, or is that actually making sense for anybody?
Course.
You're good. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Just checking in. You would I don't know you whether you'd believe it or not, but some of the reactions I've had in describing this idea of having multiple bodies within our body um, has been interesting. So I would like to invite us to do a paired exercise coming up. And we're going to stay with the feeling body. And I thought I would just do a very quick touch in with the physical body, like a recap that we did with the stages of awareness. I'm going to do a bit of a recap back to September and October when we actually talked quite a bit about, and there was some course material about the physical body. some of those first aid resilience skills. And for those of you who are interested, you may want to you may want to get yourself the book Climate Cure from Jack Adam Weber. That was the first book that we talked about focusing on in back in September and October and November. And just a brief aside, I don't, yeah, there it is. There's Climate Cure right on your screen. I'm going to spare you the long details, but this course has been revamped and retooled more times in the past 3 months than any other piece I've put together in the past 10 years. Times they're changing and they're changing rapidly, and the demands of being able to adapt to what's being offered by you all as the participants, the receivers of the material, and also how relevant is it to what's going on. So I'd like to just do a quick recap of two distinctions about the physical body. It's two different kinds of practices so that we can have a shared language that keeps expanding and expanding as we go into these different bodies. And so one of the simplest, most common and important cornerstone practices we can do in the physical body as we are on this Paul Chafurka path is to get a contemplative practice, a practice that allows us to calm our system, which is another word that I use just for the physical body or for the wholeness of our body. And so just noticing, if you will, we'll just take a few moments. This is about 30 seconds worth of just noticing the physical sensations in your body, starting with the air in your nostrils, if you're, or on your, in your mouth, whichever you're breathing through, noticing the sensation of air. And I'm also holding my hand on my diaphragm. So I'm able to sense, get a sensation of the expansion of my chest and diaphragm and stomach area. I'm noticing my rear end on the chair, noticing my other hand touching my kneecap. This is the simplest, just most elemental level of a contemplative practice. Of course, there is mindfulness. There are any number of different brands of meditation that you might already be quite an adept in. So the particular term that I'm just reminding us of in this actual experiential way is a contemplative practice or a calming practice. You also could call it a self-regulation practice, to regulate our system or to return it to a sense of center or calm. Are we good with that? Any comments or questions about those terms for the first kind of practice we'll talk about for the physical body? Okay. The next one is an activating practice. And this is literally almost everything out from that contemplative, that quieting realm, activates something in our body. And I'm going to ask us if it's comfortable for you to do so, to stand up. And if that doesn't work, if you're going to stay sitting, you can easily do kind of a sitting version. It really is extraordinarily simple at this level, so it's okay at whatever level you're doing it. So I'm standing with my feet slightly apart. My knees are slightly bent. And I'm going to be doing a continuous motion right in front of me. I'm going to keep my feet right where they are. And I'm going to put my hands as if I'm kind of hugging a big um,
Balloon.
stuffed bear.
Okay. I like that better.
Okay. And so I'm going to then have that stuffed bear or that beach ball, might be better. If that beach ball is going to shrink and shrink and shrink, and my hands are going to go over each other, my head's going to come in, I'm leaning down toward my knees. It's getting smaller and smaller, small beach ball. And I stop, and then I come out and I start to expand out, and my arms are getting further and further out. My head is coming up until I'm all the way up and I'm looking at the ceiling, and my arms are way out to the side. And I'll just do one more of those. I can bring my hands all the way in and shrink the beach ball back down. My head's going down toward my belly button. And I'm reaching way in and shrinking that ball down. And then I'm allowing myself to breathe in and come back out. And my arms are expanding out wide. My head is up and back, and I'm breathing. And come back to center. So I'd like to suggest that that's about the easiest darn thing. No, I've got an easier one. Next time we're going to do an easier one of an activating practice. It's the one that you reminded me of, Richard, in our last class session together. But that's previews of coming attractions. For now, we're going to go back to the feeling body. And I'm going to put those core feelings onto the chat. Just to remind you. What I'd like you to do is similar to what we did in the last few minutes in last hour. I'd like you to look at that little list of feelings. And is there one that tends to show up more often than others for you? And I'm thinking for me personally, there have been plenty of opportunities for me to feel each of those in these past couple of weeks. These past couple of weeks have been pretty volatile in my reactions and in the stuff going on in the world. So I'd like you to be thinking about it really doesn't matter much. We could do this with any one of them. But I would suggest one that you're real familiar with. Like you know that one's comes on a regular basis. And it could be that you've seen a headline in a news headline, or you've had a conversation with somebody who is of a different political persuasion, or environmental persuasion, or whatever, and noticing a feeling. It could be you've had a conversation with a friend or relative that brings on sadness or grief, and so on. It's really up to you. And we're going to be doing an exercise of sharing. One person will be sharing, the other one listening, and then we're going to give each other some reflective listening, just a way of letting each of us know that that somebody has actually heard what we're sharing. I would be happy to do a brief example, a demonstration of what I'm asking us each to do. Each of us will be paired up with another person. We'll be going through these really you're going to share about that feeling and about how it shows up and about how you process it, how you work it, how you experience yourself with that emotion in that type of moment, that type of conversation, or that kind of headline, and so on. So, Richard, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to partner up with me for the demonstration and be my listening guy.
Sure.
Great. So we're going to have approximately 5 minutes. I think I'm going to do a slightly abbreviated. I hope you'll be just a little bit, you use the time that you'll have, which will be, you'll have at least 5 minutes each, and we'll see how long this takes, and we'll perhaps a little bit more than that. And so I'm going to be speaking with to Richard, and he is going to be listening for about a minute, maybe a minute and a half. I don't want to keep going longer than that because I'm just speaking about my limitations right now. Once it goes past a minute and a half, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to reflect back the essence of what I'm hearing a person say.
Yes.
So I don't want to make it too tough for Richard. I want to give him a break and have him be able to reflect back the essence of what he's hearing me say. So that's going to happen. That's going to be a round. So a round is when I speak for about a minute and a half, and then I pause. Richard will then give me back, reflect back the essence of what he heard me say. And d- what I'd like to ask you to do, Richard, is to end your reflection with, "Do you feel heard?"
Okay.
And that gives me a chance to say, "Yeah, yes." And there's that one piece that I said about the anger that
Yeah.
he's giving me a chance to kind of fill in something that might not have been represented as well as I'd like. Is that making sense? Cool. So, any questions from anybody? All right. So, I know that I have grown up with a lot of anger in me, and I have had anger stuff, process stuff, workshop stuff, therapy stuff for years and years about anger, and it's still easy for me to touch into anger. But the one that I know I need the most attention on in my system, it needs attention in me because it's building up like pressure, is sadness and more importantly, grief. So mine's about grief. And particularly the thing that literally every time I hear about it, I can feel my body reacting. And that's what I'm going to be talking with Richard about. And that is the situation in Gaza, which I call a genocide. And I know many others call it a genocide. And I can feel a constriction in my breathing just by saying the thing that it is. So I'll be using that second set of questions to prompt myself to be able to speak with Richard so I don't have to be, worried about making something up or making sense of it. You can either use those prompts or not. Richard, are you ready?
Yep.
All right. All right. I I've known since within about a week of the attacks and the beginning of the militarization and stuff in Gaza that that I this was going to get nasty. And about 3 weeks in, it was already clear to me that this was at a scale that I've never been aware of before. I know on the planet, like how much we were hearing about it 24/7. And I also went on social media and reposted something about the Israelis taking on the role of the perpetrators now, when they, of course, have been the victims of the Holocaust. And I thought, yeah, it's really seems like it's true. And the fallout of me reposting that message was that I was immediately canceled out of the lives of people I've known for 45 years. Just immediately, that was the end of our relatedness. And I was considered horribly ignorant. And I'm going to pause and give Richard a chance. Hopefully, I haven't already overtalked it to, so
You want me to respond now?
yeah, please just reflect back what you recall, what you're left with, what I was saying.
Well, I heard that it's easy for you to access anger, and that's been the case for a long time. But, the more recent events in Gaza have triggered a new level of anger in you and upset about the genocide happening there and just the whole scale destruction of Gaza, basically, the people, the place, the buildings. You
Yeah,
didn't say that, but that's implied. And the escalation there is very upsetting to you. And then you said you posted something about, the fact that the Israelis had switched from being victims to perpetrators, basically, in this situation, and got ruthlessly attacked for doing that and lost a lot of friends and things like that, which is pretty bad. I think that's most of what I heard. Do you feel heard adequately?
yeah, I do. Thank you. I feel very, very much heard. So I'm going to have about enough time for one more round. So I'm going to do one more round with Richard. So what I know, having done a lot of grief work, I know when there's a sense of like a buildup in my system, and it feels like this, like I'm uh, getting close to drowning if I wait too much longer in unmetabolized grief, and I can feel that. And I know I'm doing it, which is at least better than unconsciously, trying to drink my way or drug my way or distract my way out of not feeling, that override thing.
Yep.
So I know it's there, and I'm so thankful that I can touch it and I can titrate or I can bite off little amounts of my experience of grief in my own system, and I can let off a little steam, if you will. And so what I'm doing right now is just slowing down my own speaking, and I'm closing my eyes so I can just focus on the feeling. And I know it's there, and it seems like a really young voice comes up for me that I remember saying this literally like I'm like 4 or 5 years old, and there's these hellacious fights between my parents, and I remember saying it doesn't have to be like this. Like who are we that we treat each other like this? And I still have no answer. I Another one is who have we become? And it just breaks my heart. So the last thing I'll finish up with is that I feel like in being able to do this and share this with you, Richard, is that I feel like I touch into about 20% of my this pool of grief that I've got. and it's not the whole thing. It's not the intensity and the wailing I could be doing, but I can feel this movement, this much needed movement, and I just appreciate being able to say it and to be heard. So that's me.
Hmm. Well, this is a little harder for me to encapsulate.
Mhm.
I mean, I heard you say that you're needing to really get in touch more with your grief and sadness because it's not as easy for you to do that. And it's kind of rising up to the level where it's starting to choke you. It feels like it's choking you, you know. And but you said you know feel good about titrating it or experiencing it in smaller chunks, and that that's important. And yeah, and then you referenced some experiences from when you were, you know, a pretty small child, and you know your parents, you know, arguing and fighting, whatever they were doing, and you know having that question back then is, why do we treat each other like this, or do we have to be like this with each other? Um, and you said it was, you know, what you were tapping into talking to us was just about 20% of
Mhm.
the deep grief that you could feel, you know, instead of wailing and shouting or screaming or whatever, that you were talking it through and feeling it in your body, and that felt good. And
Yeah,
you were aware you were doing something with it, you know, releasing it, feeling it, whatever. Well,
yeah.
20%.
Well, that's
So
really
you
great.
feel heard.
Yeah, I do feel heard. Really. Thank you. You just nailed it with each piece you reflected back. Thank you.
Hmm.
So, any questions from anybody or yeah? Okay. I'm noticing I thought I was going to be all fast and stuff, which I never am. And that took 8 minutes for a round. So why don't we all plan on doing 2 rounds a piece? And
Oh,
has everybody got a core feeling that they've chosen that they're gonna share about? Everybody got something?
not me. I
It-
feel uncomfortable about this exercise.
Okay.
So I'm going to just refrain from sharing.
Okay. Would you be willing to be a listener?
Absolutely.
Great. Let's do this for 15 minutes. So it's I've got 5 minutes past the hour. I'll be sending out a message to you all at the halfway point, just to remind you that it's time to shift your roles. And I'll see you all in 15 minutes. All right. Bob, would you like to go first?
Sure, since you've already gone. So,
Yeah.
um, let me bring the chat back up so I can have those things there. Okay. Uh, all right, I'll start. This is not going to surprise you, but none of those items on the list are my prominent items.
Okay.
Um, I, I'm not saying it. You you won't be surprised maybe if I said that, but anyway.
Okay.
Uh, It's kind of like, I'm not quite as bad as Trump. You never know what's coming out of his mouth, but I mean, me. Um, anyway, um, my prominent thing is gratitude, because every time I have that slight inkling of fear coming in, or that sadness that comes in, or if I see the anger pop up for a second, I know to stop it. I know that those are items that are natural in my evolutionary stage, uh, which is the same stage as most people. That this is as far as we have evolutionarily come, um, using the mind and reasoning and all that kind of stuff. And so those are all just I have been able to learn, thankfully, and that's part of my gratitude. That these are little blips that key me to understand what the gratitude is,
Mm-hmm.
and to not forget the gratitude, to not let the individual circumstances behind the sadness, the grief, the fear, even joy, um, because those are human embodiments that are at levels of knowledge that is the only thing we know now at our evolutionary stage of development. But my premise from now on is going to be that we have to evolve. Not so much the body. That takes a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But that, and I'll try and tighten this up right quick so we can go back to your part. That the great seers and sages and saints of past times have tried to tell us that's what we got to do. We have to evolve. At which point we'll have a higher consciousness and we will know things at a level that we cannot know now. And that will help us to be able to live peacefully on this planet. Okay.
Okay. So Bob, you experience yourself having a different um, feeling in yourself when you scan the little list in the chat, and yours is gratitude. And um, when you do experience even a little waft of, if it's anger or sadness, another of the feelings, that you bring yourself back to that gratitude. And because that's um, what seems like a strong message that has just made a vivid impression on you from, if it's sacred teachings or wise words from wisdom traditions, is that we need the gratitude and we need to evolve. And in order to come anywhere near what it takes to evolve, we need to be a whole lot closer to the gratitude than to the other emotions on that little list. So those are, I'm saying the words very differently than I heard you say them, but I'm wondering if you feel heard.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Was there anything you'd like to tweak at all?
Well, gratitude is still a concept within the evolutionary level that humanity's at now. And it just happens to be the one that I focus everything else back to, and that I want to make sure that I'm still feeling those others, but only as a reminder to be grateful that I know and not know, instead of not knowing what's going on,
Mhm.
So that's maybe the only little tweak I had there, but that's okay. That was really good though. So yeah.
Okay.
So now we're going to go with you
No,
next, or are we going to do my second round and then go to you, or?
no. You're doing a second round, and you don't need to worry about time at all. I'd like to ask you to do another round after whatever you're going to do now. I'd like to extend yours because you're right. I've already done mine. So,
Yeah, that didn't count. That was training.
okay.
I hope it wasn't a willful training process. It was actually truth when you were doing it. So that's cool. So
Oh, yeah.
anyway, yeah.
So I'm curious, Bob, if I could prompt you, because it sounds like, you kind of wrapped it up really in that first round. I'm curious if you ever find yourself just a little bit more perturbed in some way, feeling one of those other feelings. And can you give me a sense of what out in the world or what's going on that gets you just a little bit more into any of the other feelings?
I don't know if you've heard me talk about it or not, but I come to this um, focus through what I call a process of elimination. Um, I am presented with something, a circumstance, or a situation, whatever it happens to be. And whether it's a work in my life over time or something uh, strategically bad that has happened that would, throw you off kilter or something, or a work situation at which uh, you recognize the negative aspects of it, and you need to change and get into something else, that kind of thing. Whatever it is, a marriage, a death in the family. Each of these things um, ultimately tells me that this is not exactly where I'm supposed to stay. I'm not supposed to be engulfed in this. I'm not
Mhm.
supposed to have this as a full-time thing. That there's got to be something beyond these. There's got to be a reason that I'm not aware of that is supporting this, but it's a process of eliminating this or that feeling or that circumstance and trying to get to an understanding of something that might be underlying that would take you to, if it doesn't actually take you to that next level, it takes you to a realization that there has to be another level, that this does not lead to peace on earth, does not lead to a sustainable existence, that
Mhm.
everything that humanity has been doing since the fall, so to speak, however you want to define it or say whenever it happened or whatever, the division, the separation, there's got to be some kind of unity or something behind it that is where we ultimately have to go. And so that the process of elimination of every circumstance from day to day, from moment to moment, leads me to that. And to me, that's the direction I have to take. Let's put it that way.
Okay. So it seems similar to the last piece of the first round that you shared, where you might get a waft but you really got this clear kind of inner directive of this isn't the place to hang out. There's no usefulness in, and there's, again, it's a different word than you use, but it seemed like you were saying something like this is not a useful space. This feeling that I have wafting up is not a useful space. It, is that, do you feel heard when I'm saying that, or is there some way
Uh,
to change it?
yeah, pretty good. Pretty good.
And so,
It's not like I don't want to experience them. That's not the point. Is I don't want them to take hold of me.
right.
I want to be able to learn from them and not stay in them. So yeah, you really you got it. Yeah, it's not a useful place to stay.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's different, and I appreciate it. Would you mind if I asked a question to just prompt
sure,
the
sure.
next round?
Yeah,
So could you recount, a strong waft of some, if it's anger or if it's sadness or if it's fear, whatever one comes to mind or it comes to recollection, like what's it like, this way that you kind of set it up to want to learn from it and then let it go. Can you describe that process a little bit?
yeah. I have several different ways of looking at it, but I'll just give you one example of something that happened. I had a boss, my last boss, that put me into a situation that was untenable. Uh, Something that I did not know yet. So I had put me into a new position, and within a week of being in that position, put me into an untenable situation that I did not have the experience for. And I made an error. It cost him $75,000. And he went off at me. But from that moment, and that was from the moment he did that, I decided I was going to do something I had done once before in my life that seemed like that it worked out in a good situation. And that was when I had my previous wife had an employer that was just an old biddy. She wasn't nice to anybody, didn't do anything right. Nobody did anything right. She never smiled at anybody. And I decided I wasn't going to let her beat me at that. So I started being nice to her as I could, every chance I had. And I didn't care what happened. And
Mhm.
after about a year, she started being nice to me back to me. The only person she was ever nice to that anybody can remember. And I learned from that. And that was back in the early 70s. I learned that, okay, you can help control the situation. So when my boss did this to me, I let him rant and rave and go through his anger and all this kind of stuff, listening like what we're doing right now, just listening. I just sat there and absorbed it all. And I let him just work it out, get it out.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, we might stay 2 hours after at work with him ranting and raving at me. And then it's easy expended until the next time something wasn't perfect.
Mhm.
And it came up again. Okay. At and 5 or 6 years later after that, at my retirement, he told people at my retirement that he had learned so much from me about how to stay calm and not get angry and being able to control things. Because after he did that so many times, those 2 hour sessions would go down to one, and then they'd go down to half an hour, and then they'd go to 10 minutes. And then he realized that wasn't useful, anymore. The anger didn't get him where he was thinking it was going to get him. And so that's just an example of not staying with something that's not useful, you know.
I'm typing and I'm going to be reflecting back in just a second.
Yeah. You got to talk to everybody. Yeah.
All right. So, couple of examples that you gave me about how you can process that kind of waft in your system, like you've got some anger or some sadness or some fear or whatever you got, is also around somebody else that's got something like that going on. And so you had the boss example and you had your wife example. And the boss, well, they both, you just sounds like my expression for that is listen them to zero. In other words, you just were an open listening, a warm, opening listening, open listening for them. And each took their own time, and for your boss, it took a number of times for him to kind of get into the flow with you. That it didn't take 2 hours after a while. You know, he might have had a few of those things, and by the end of the series of them, substantially less long and involved and maybe even intense situation. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, he learned what I had learned,
Yeah.
that holding on to that anger wasn't fruitful.
Wow.
And that if you stop and think about it a little bit more, then there's places you can go beyond that. It can help you go beyond itself, you know. So
Wow. Great. Great. I wish I could find myself a boss like that.
you make him.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
You make him.
Yeah.
And they thank you for it at the end.
Yeah. Nice. I might have a book you'd be interested in.
All right, we're back.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
We have about 5 minutes left officially.
Yeah.
If everybody or whoever might be willing to stay for an extra 5 minutes beyond that, I predict we might have some more to share than 5 minutes would give us. If anybody has a hard stop, like you got to go at the bottom of the hour, please speak first. Please, if you have anything to share about how it was to speak, how it was to listen and reflect, and anyone can begin. Go to Tasha for her share. Yeah.
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 Okay.
Um,
It was like there was almost no elaboration or explanation needed. So I feel she was saying the same, that I'm just really grateful I got paired with her. It was amazing. Yeah.
I feel the same way. It's like a meeting of, oh, we're kind of have some similar things we're dealing with, and it was like, it was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you both.
I'll say Beverly and I had a good talk, even though she didn't want to, do the full sharing thing. She actually shared quite a bit, and we talked about things she was sharing, and then I shared my stuff about feeling completely outraged and angry that after 10 years of dealing with Trump, we're still stuck with him and having to deal with him for another 4 years or longer, possibly. I mean, holy crap. It's like, what kind of Twilight Zone universe have we got stuck in here, And
yeah,
I really am furious about it. And Beverly reminded me that anger can be a pretty toxic emotion and, drain the joy out of life. And I had to admit that's true. And I don't want to be angry all the time. I don't like it. So I am limiting my news consumption to a degree just so I'm not continually stimulated into feeling angry. It's
yeah,
the whole situation has gotten so absurd. I really feel like I'm in this weird nightmare world where none of the former rules apply and nothing makes sense and it's all just nuts.
yeah.
Anyway, anyway, that's all the stuff we talked about.
Yeah.
I can relate, Richard.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. Totally get it.
Yeah, it's just hard to believe that this is really happening, but it is.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hey, Bob.
I would like to posit that it's possible that it's all supposed to happen. Anyway, I mean, who's going to say how collapse is supposed to happen? But it's got to happen. I mean,
Right.
we're collapse acceptant. I mean,
Yep.
we just acknowledge that collapse is going to happen, but why?
Mm.
Maybe because, the level that we're at evolutionarily is not sustainable. And so there has to be something else beyond this, something else that evolution wants to happen. And by given choice, we are allowed to maybe participate in that versus being an animal stuck in nature's material evolutionary whim of millions of years.
Mhm.
We have some agency in this. We can actually do something to help move it along, control it, not control it, being able to control it. That's not what I meant. We
Yeah.
have agency. We can participate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can aid evolution in what her desires are, But we're not going to know that at the level of evolution that we're at now. We've got to get to
No.
someplace higher where that
Yeah,
knowledge
right.
can become our normal knowledge, and we can use that to live sustainably on this planet, however many of us there are, if there are any in the future. Maybe it's all supposed to be.
You know,
Right.
Bob, you're sharing with me, and then what you've just said reminds me of a book I just finished yesterday that I'd like to strongly recommend. First time I've read a novel in years. It's called Essential Revolution, and the author's last name is McGinnis. And I mean, literally, you could have been a character in that novel with the way you're talking now, Bob. And it's happens in a prison, and there's all kinds of gnarly characters, and they
Are
end
you
up,
saying that I should be in prison?
well, more or less, yeah, and that you're very
Okay, okay,
gnarly,
okay.
yeah.
Uh,
And
uh,
he takes these gnarly characters and puts them through some workshop experience, a lot like the workshop you're mentioning that we indirectly, Bob, that we're all in. And he has them end up doing ho'oponopono with each other. So
oh yeah.
if for anybody on the screen right now doesn't know ho'oponopono, it will come in one of these Saturday sessions. We will practice that together. It's quite a remarkable thing that I think is a perfect fit for the kind of evolutionary steps you're talking about, Bob. So I'm noticing there's some coherence that's shown up very, very easily, even though there are combinations of us that don't know each other at all. And I noticed that, it's can be kind of an uncomfortable experience to try and find a way to share something that's as potentially vulnerable as our own feelings with one another, and especially if we don't know one another. And to have coherence at any level with that's a sweet thing. That's a something really worth noticing. And it's one of the pieces that keeps having me love being in these circles, is the coherence seems to come easier and easier, faster and faster with each group. Really appreciate that. Is there anything else that I would appreciate it if each of us could check out in a way in these next couple of minutes, just with a few words or maybe a couple of sentences of what you're landing with? What are you landing with after spending this time together?
I feel relieved
Hmm.
and comforted to be in the presence of other sane people who are admitting what's going on in the world and who are freaked out by it as I am. Misery loves company, I guess. I don't know.
Hmm.
To have my feelings validated, I guess. Yes.
Hmm. Yeah.
Right. Beverly, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a nice warm feeling in the center of my chest here.
Me too.
Yeah, and I feel like there's some real value in just acknowledging what's going on and this really tough reality we're facing and sharing it with other people. Something inherently healing about that. It just
Yeah.
feels good. It feels good. It feels felt like the right thing to do. Yeah, where I'm at.
Yeah, thank you, Richard.
Beautiful feeling.
I guess that's why we come to a course called Islands of Sanity in a Mad World.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Except we should acknowledge just one little fact. We each are an island and we can be sane, even though we have to live in an insane world. So thanks for everybody for being here and putting forth a little bit of your sanity for everybody else to grab hold of. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Yep. Thank you. Hmm.
My therapist, I told her I had watched the documentary about living in the time of dying, and she said, Tasha, why don't you focus on something positive, you know? And I think I might need to be finding a new therapist soon because this is the most uplifting thing I could have been doing with my Saturday and just feeling so seen and connected right off the bat. It's just really incredible feeling. And so I'm grateful for that. So thank you.
Mhm.
Yep.
Great to have you here.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you
Glad
so
you're here.
Might
Thank
try
you.
letting Michael Dowd be your therapist for a while.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Has
Hmm.
everybody checked out that wants to check out?
I just want to say that a lot of the weight that I was carrying has lifted. I'm still not energetic,
Hmm.
um, but I don't. Before I was feeling like if I felt it, I'd be flat on my face on the ground with the weight of everything. And now I feel like I can walk, maybe not run, maybe not
That's
dance, but at least
wonderful.
yeah,
Yep.
that I can walk around and it's sunny here now and I can go out and feed the birds and yeah. So
Beautiful.
thank you all, even though we're all individual islands of hopefully sanity. Being connected up in a little archipelago is really nice. You know,
Yeah.
we can paddle our little canoes to another island and say hi.
Yep.
Do you have a pina colada waiting for me?
All right.
Hmm.
Y'all, thank you so much for a lovely, lovely Saturday morning on this side of the planet anyway. And please don't hesitate to get in touch with me either now after this recorder's turned off and so on, if you have any questions about contacting the materials or anything. Otherwise, we will see each other 2 weeks.
February 15th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so
Yeah.
glad I
Valen-
reconnected with you, Richard.
Mhm.
Yes. Good. And
Or you can join us Tuesday nights.
This is all good
Tuesday
stuff.
nights? Okay, I'll check that too.
Oh, yeah.
Tuesday.
I often get mixed up with the time change because I'm in Toronto, so, but I will try and connect on the Tuesday ones too.
All right.
I'm in Ontario too, Beverly. So
Are
well,
you?
yeah,
Oh, cool.
yeah.
What city?
I'm south of Georgian Bay, south of Meaford.
Oh, okay. You're up north, sort of.
Oh
From
yes,
north of Toronto.
yeah. I'm in snow country.
Oh, I love it. I would love to be where you are. I love
Oh.
snow.
Okay.
All right, you Canadians.
Okay.
Have a wonderful
Thank you,
evening.
Bye,
thank you,
everybody.
Dean.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Dean.
Great.
See you
Bye,
later.
everyone.
Alligator.
See you later.